are bringing the exotics back. I have to tell you, when somebody who'd been away from IMSA racing for a while and got back into it, when I saw the LMDH cars, the GTPs, I'm going, this. I mean, it's great to be able to see a Porsche on the track, or to be able to see an Audi and a BMW, the cars that we can recognize. They're not those cookie cutter stock cars, as you put it. But it's fair to say that the exotics are the ones that just, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. It's such a perfect time right now, because I think that will capture a new audience and bring an audience back, because I think it's the right thing to do. It's going to be making sure that it's affordable for the teams right now. And I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle they have to overcome, is making sure that everybody is there, they can afford it, and we keep it competitive. Yes?
Yeah, I just hope it's affordable enough where a lot of people can come in. My big worry is that it turns out to be something like what the Ferrari Challenge was a few years ago, where you had a bunch of very wealthy owners, and I know of one driver who will remain nameless, and over the course of one weekend, he wrote off two Ferraris. He wrote a check for the second one and wrote a check for the third one. I hate the thought of that happening, in that you can have somebody with an enormously deep pocket just come in and start writing cars off. I don't want to see that. I want to see a level of skill shown, whether that's racing the MX-5 Cup or whether it's the Porsche Cup or whatever. I want to see skill rather than, here we go back to NASCAR, the bump and grind and push somebody out of the way. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's. I remember when there was a whole discussion about that, where we talked about, and this goes back to the Trans Am days, and I'm trying to remember. It was I can't. His name was Davis, John Davis. I can't remember, but he was one of the drivers. And I came up in a conversation one day where they were trying to figure out how to market the series. I said, you should call it a contact sport. I said, because people don't understand that there is a lot of contact that goes on the track. He made T-shirts up, Trans Am, it's a contact sport. And I thought that was a great idea, but it just went away. And I said, yeah, that's part of the excitement there. But what you bring out is true. NASCAR is a contact sport, but the road racing and IMSA, it's a contact sport. But my God, the amount of skill that's involved. On that track, yes. Those speeds, I think we have to push that forward, don't you? They've really got to get to that and keep the drivers in there, keep the skilled drivers, and then make it affordable. It's a lot to do, but I think that's where they have to go next, and I think where they're heading.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know what these cars are going to cost, but they're going to be a lot more than you and I could afford. And I can't wait to see them on track. I think they're going to be beautiful. And I think that they're probably going to satisfy a lot of Walter Mitty dreams, and that the people in the stand, they're going to go, I like that one because of the shape, because of the engine sound, whatever, whereas somebody else is going to go, I like this one. It's one of the things where when they started this electric car racing a couple of years ago, I said, never going to work. You're taking too much of the sensual aspect out of racing.
Really?
When I go to a track, I like to listen to the sound of a rotary engine Mazda. I like a flat six Porsche. I like a V8 Chevrolet, Ford, whatever. I like a V10 Judd, a V12 Ferrari. Everything has a different sound. I just think that is so attractive. And with the electric car, you hear nothing other than wind being compressed as it comes towards you, with the wind blowing over the wings a little bit.
But aren't we getting to the point where that's going to be inevitable because of fossil fuels around the world, because of the cost of fossil fuels? Aren't we reaching a point where everybody is going to eventually, but it's probably not going to happen in our lifetime, but that electric racing has got to become a major focus of IMSA, of F1, and of a lot of these series?
Yeah, I'm still holding out for the future, in that there are alternate fuel sources, hydrogen being one, and they may not have the specific horsepower of a fossil fuel fed motor, but they're getting pretty efficient. And when you get a number of people involved, Formula One is a good idea, that here you have cars running a fossil fuel and also integrating electric power very selectively, and it makes it immensely entertaining. But to have a pure electric race, I think that would be a death warrant.
You can't hear somebody miss a gear, miss a shift in the pop. He missed it. You can tell.
That
You can't do that
exactly
in
right.
electric. Formula One I mentioned briefly a little while ago. We are now the Miami event was an incredible success. We've had them on the streets before. We now have more Formula One races that are coming to America in 2023. Is it not fair to say that people in every other form of racing have to be on note? Formula One's coming for America. They're
Hmm.
coming for the money, they're coming for the TV, they're coming for the fans. And this to me seems like, in many ways, in some ways, a quiet takeover by Formula One in order to capture that American racing dollar. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I think that's exactly what's going on. When Zach Brown took over the leadership role that he's currently in.
So I love all forms of motorsport, but Formula One's the pinnacle. They're the fastest cars. They're the greatest drivers. There's kind of more money on the line, and I don't necessarily mean that just financially, even though that is the case. The development, the size of the teams, the complexity of the sport. But I very much love IndyCar racing in North America. It's some of the best racing. It's got the Indy 500, Le Mans is an awesome event, which, McLaren's the only team to have won the Triple Crown, Indy 500, Monte Carlo, and Le Mans. I'd love to see us go back to Le Mans in the future. So they're all different disciplines, and there are different things I really enjoy about the different forms of racing.
With his Hollywood, with his television background, I think he understood that side of marketing even better than Bernie Ecclestone did. Bernie was kind of like a little demigod. You do what I say and things are going to be good. He was correct to a certain point, but what Zach has done, showing the success of Netflix series, wow, he's just kicked that into gear, and I applaud the devil out of him for that. I think he's been brilliant.
And it's the fans are watching and they like what they see. And even though the Miami event was wonderfully put together, a lot of criticism, a lot of ups and downs there, and learning of the track they put together there,
Yeah,
fans are saying, we got to try this. They're beginning to like the international flair of it, and the cars. I can't even begin to mention how wonderful they are. So we could go on and on
yeah.
that for a while. But Formula One's coming. One thing I do have to last thing I got to get in here, but I must. The whole concept of Full Throttle is stories,
Uh
and you've
huh.
known me long enough that I've interviewed so many people in sports and news, and I love stories. So I'm putting you on the spot. The story that Bill Adam has never told, the one that you'd love to tell, the one that you can
Uh
think
oh.
back into your mind right now and go, let's see, I'm not going to get anybody in trouble, but what's that one great story that Bill Adams never told?
Gosh, you know what? I think when I look back, Ed, I have been, once again, I'll use the word blessed. For me, racing a car was always something that, for most of my life, was an unreachable plateau. Born in Scotland, with very ordinary, in other words, poor parents who emigrated to Canada. Both my mom and dad worked, and when I wanted to perhaps buy an old race car and start racing, oh my gosh, it hit the fan. My dad was up there going, don't be foolish, young man. You've got to be a doctor, a lawyer, and do something on and on like this. Well,
He
when I
must have been
brought,
talking to my mom.
oh yeah. So when I bought my first race car, I actually hid it from him. And he didn't know for the first year until he actually read it in a newspaper that I had won a moderately big race. So continuing down the line with racing having been so kind to me, the very first Miami Grand Prix, uh, when I came to town, I was driving for Jaguar, and we had a public relation guy who was with me all the time. And he would come to areas, like, for example, Miami. And Monday morning at 9 o'clock, we had an appointment set up at WPLG, ABC television. And then at 11 o'clock, it was WFOR, CBS. Then we would go to Fox and NBC. Tuesday might be a newspaper day, Miami Herald. Wednesday, we'd go to Fort Lauderdale, to Palm Beach, and really do a media coverage that was a spectacular success. The very first person I met, having come into Miami for my very first time, was Diane, the woman who was to become my wife. And so through racing, I can say, thank you, racing, for allowing me to meet the most wonderful person I could ever have hoped. And then through our union, we've got this daughter who, on a daily basis, just blows us away with love. So I owe a lot to racing.
You're not going to stop racing, are you? I mean, I know you still get in a car.
No, actually, to be honest, the last car I drove was it's a race car, but the guy didn't buy it to race with. He bought it kind of because he loved it, and it was a McLaren Senna GTR model. One of, I forget how many they built, like
Boy, I
28 of
hate
them.
you.
And he asked me one day, he's just a car lover, car collector that is very wealthy. And he asked me one day, he said, will you come up to Palm Beach and test my new McLaren? Didn't take a whole lot of convincing for that one, Ed. And went up there and got in his McLaren and I might have done 10 laps. I could have stayed in it all day because I was having so much fun, but I thought, not fair, and I certainly don't want to make a mistake here. So I'm going to do the right thing, pull back into pit lane to get out of the car. But to be in what I'll call as a proper race car, I haven't done that for, I think, about 8 years. And I stopped, maybe a combination of sensibility and guilt. And true, we had run Sebring in an Audi R8, the Le Mans prototype race car. And my co-driver was Butch Leitzinger, wonderful young American driver. And we were lucky enough to win the race. Afterwards, I got out and I went over to my boss at the time and I said, I'm going to take the rest of the year off. Why? What's wrong, Bill? Nothing wrong. You know me, I'm passionately in love with this car. The fellows on the crew could not have asked for somebody who had a stronger bond with. But I got thinking about what happens if something breaks, the speeds we were doing in the Audi, or if I make a mistake. Who pays for it? It's going to be Diane. It's going to be our daughter, Shay. It's not going to be me. And I thought, all right, you've had a good run. Maybe now is the time to say thank you very much and stop worrying my family. And that was it.